Hello and welcome to Being Rad with me, Robert Alexander Duran. Today I have intuitive life coach Raman with me, and Raman has impacted millions, mainly on TikTok, which we're going to go into, and we're here to discuss what she's doing and how she's doing it. Raman, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Did I nail that introduction or was that awful?
I think you nailed it.
Yes! Would you like to elaborate though? So how have you impacted millions? Because that's hell of a claim, if I must say so myself.
Yeah, it's wild. So I guess the first thing would be TikTok. I started making TikTok content, I think in 2021, and I decided I was just going to go right into it and make one video a day. I'm kind of like what Gary Vee talks about. I guess it's different nowadays. Make 6 or 7, but I was making a video a day and I was putting all of my coaching tips out there. I wanted to impact as many people as I could, especially the youth. I felt really called to just help with, all of the mental health stuff going on, especially during COVID, right? So I felt really inspired to go on there and share as much as I could. And I did, and I made a video a day, I think for 3 months, and then I burnt out. That's a whole other topic. And I guess people really liked the videos. I was sharing, 5 regrets of the dying and, little tidbits like that, as well as a lot of information around how our energy works, how emotions work, and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
So you said all of your best tips, so you didn't hold anything back. You gave away the farm, as Alex Hormozy says. Is that right?
I mean, I gave away mostly as much as I could. I think there are so many breakthroughs that happen one-on-one with clients, which just that you can't get that from just giving tips on TikTok. But in terms of what I knew, I tried to shorten it into a 1-minute video because back then it was only 1 minute, right? Now you can go up to 10 minutes. But I tried to shorten it down and I gave away as much as I could.
And what did that do for you in terms of business?
That was when my business went full time. Yeah. So I've worked as an intuitive coach since I graduated. I finished up my certification at the end of 2018, and then I started coaching in 2019. I was doing in-person workshops and getting clients through that and just whatever. And then throughout 2019, 2020, my business was sort of part-time. I had other side jobs. And then in 2021, as soon as I started, I think maybe 2 weeks into making TikTok videos, I had a lot of coaching applications and I got to meet some amazing clients around the world. So clients I still see today. So yeah, it did a lot for my business.
Amazing. And what kind of things were you posting about? I haven't phrased this question very well. Let me try again. What was the styling like of your videos? Were you doing like the kind of vlogger selfie style, or were you doing the whole editing, captions kind of stuff that I do for clients? What was your style like?
Yeah, I mean, it was usually just me talking into the camera for a minute. And I think down the line, when I first got on there, I don't think they had the captions feature. So I would use an external app to get the captions on there, and people quite like that. But now they have the captions feature, so anyone can just turn on the captions. But yeah, it was just me talking into the camera, and my biggest thing was just bringing my energy to the videos rather than trying to churn out a bunch of information. But it was mostly me talking into the camera. I wasn't really doing like vlogs or day in my life or things like that.
Did you feel like having to distill the idea that you were trying to talk about into a minute improved your communication skills?
Absolutely. Yeah, it made me more concise. I can talk forever. But it helped me become more concise, which I think we could all use a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a friend, previous sales guy kind of thing who's in Texas, and his videos, he just talks. And it's like, dude, you could have made that point in a few seconds, but you've got a 6-minute long video. Why? He's like, well, Robert, I just like talking, man. I was like, yeah, but do people like listening to it? Like, how many views are you getting? And it's like, Well, I got 150 on the one I posted yesterday. I'm like, okay, now try distilling that down into a minute, see what the improvement is.
That's such a good point. I've never thought of this before you pointed it out, that was actually such a blessing in disguise, because I didn't have more than a minute. I only had a minute. And so a lot of the times I was actually, back then, I think a lot of TikTok content was more viney, so it was more 15 seconds. So I was really trying to get information in there in less than a minute. A minute was a long video back then. So that's a really good point. I've never even thought about that. Yeah.
Well, Alex Hormozy says there's no such thing as too long, only too boring.
Yeah, that's
you have to take the platform into account as well. And like those 6-minute long videos of my friend mentioned, he's doing them as like vertical videos. And I feel like something about the vertical video means that people expect, they've been conditioned to have short, concise information. Whereas if they're on YouTube, they know it's going to be landscape. How else would you say that? Horizontal.
Yeah.
And they expect it to be longer than a minute. And therefore, they're more predisposed to actually watching for longer. And also with this, the way that people find those videos has a lot to do with that, because on YouTube, they've either searched for it or they've been drawn in by the thumbnailing and title. Whereas on TikTok, it's like you just go through and they have to be caught by the first few seconds, don't they? So the hook has to be really strong. So if you've got a good thumbnail and title, your hook on YouTube doesn't have to be quite as punchy, and people may still watch if they know the information's going to be valuable. So you have to take into account where those videos are going. And I've said to him before, like, if you want to do 6-minute videos, do it portrait. I always get these mixed up. Do it landscape and put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But anyway, what does it mean?
Good point. Yeah.
What does it mean to be an intuitive coach or intuitive life coach? You said that you go by both.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. So it's probably not something you hear super often, but it's a very specific type of coaching where it's combining the modalities of intuitive reading and life coaching. So I have the skills of actually intuitively reading someone, but then I also have the skills of life coaching. So actually helping them shift those subconscious patterns and, move forward, get unstuck, all that kind of stuff. So it's a combination of both. Yeah.
So life coaching, I'd say very familiar with. I've got a life coaching certification in something, not accredited, didn't pay for it. Well, I paid very little. And I've done some NLP stuff. I know a bit about that side.
Yeah. What's
the intuitive reading stuff like? Because for me, I'm not overly informed about that. And I'm thinking tarot cards right now.
Of course, we go to
tarot.
More
about that.
Yeah. So I don't read tarot cards. I don't really use, I know. I have oracle cards for myself, but I don't use those in session. So I've kind of been trained to intuitively sense and know and sort of feel what's going on with my clients. So if they're feeling held back in a certain way, I can sort of tune into their body. I can feel, okay, where is this trapped in their body? Sometimes it's an emotional thing. Usually it's an emotional thing. For example, since we were talking about creating content, if someone feels like, I've always wanted to make content, but I don't know, like I don't think I have the ideas or whatever, all these excuses we come up with. I'm able to kind of feel into, well, what's really going on in their body? Oh, okay, there's some fear there. Oh, they're afraid of the embarrassment that might happen. They're afraid of, so I can kind of feel into the body and sort of sense what's going on in that way. And I can also, it gets quite deep. I can also, depending on if someone's had certain traumas or experiences that have kind of gotten them to where they are, I can also feel into those experiences and traumas. So I had a client who, for example, was ready to kind of take on that next step in his life and go from being like CEO to like psychotherapist. And so his thing was, I don't know, like, how am I going to make this change? And so I was able to kind of tune in and see like exactly what age something happened that kind of informed a lot of his life choices. So it's kind of, it gets super deep. And that's what I love about it, because I'm not a surface level coach. I always say this when people come in. I'm not just like, hoorah, like, yeah, let's do it. There's a lot of deeper work that we do. And so that's where I'm able to sort of tune in with that intuition.
Is that just in person, or can you do that remotely?
Remotely. I've actually mostly worked remotely for the past few years. My clients are all over the world. It can be done anywhere.
So what's going on with me?
Nah.
Like,
Robert.
too much away. I know, like, I know I haven't paid your fee or anything. Give us a little tip out. Tell if you're right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what the heck? Let me do an intuitive reading right here. I've never done this live. Okay, Robert. Is that your birth name?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is just what's coming up. I see your mom. I don't know why I see your mom. Not sure what's going on between you guys or what's going on with her. I don't know why I keep seeing your mom. I'm also seeing that you're going through, I don't even know if transition is a right word. There's like something percolating. I don't know if you're creating something new. God, I don't know why I keep seeing your mom. This is similar to what a session could look like. Obviously, people bring in like, here's what's going on in my life, and then I tune in. But we're really just going on the spot here. Let me see what else is coming in. Yeah, I don't know. What's going on with your mom? Like, that's such a specific question. But how are you and your mom? I'm sorry, this is getting super personal.
Not at all. Me and my mum are fine. She has a lot of health issues that I do worry about. So, I mean, it's not particularly top of mind. I've got my own stuff to be thinking about, but that's kind of always in the back of my mind. Like, I'd like her to have a better quality of life. Totally. And then in terms of the transition phase, yes, but I'm always building new stuff. So,
yeah, that's true. You're a builder.
Yeah, I have the word restless tattooed at the bottom of my ankle. And I got that when I was 21, 22. And I still relate. And I don't know if that's ever going to go away or if it is just how I am.
Interesting.
And I'm starting to think it's just my personality. Like, I've never been one of these people. Like, you know, you get the people who met in primary school and then they're married and they have kids and they live in the same town the whole life. That's not me. Like, I'm always looking for something new. It's part of having had severe ADHD as a toddler. So that could be something to do with it. Does that inform
I love it. No,
the intuition any further?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that restlessness it can be such a beautiful thing because, you know, you're curious, you're always growing, you're always expanding, but then there's always the other side of the sword. Is that the saying?
Coin.
Okay, I'm like, what am I saying?
It's a double-edged sword.
It's a double-edged. Yeah, I was mixing the phrases.
It can also someone else does.
Yeah, right. I'm picking up on your energy. Dang it. No, but it can also be this. It can also cause anxiety, right? It can turn into. I just see like this volume knob. It can, like, when it turns up, it can also turn up the anxiety. And I don't know if that's something that you experience, but it's like it can cause. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah.
Well, you know about Tony Robbins' 6 human needs, I presume. The first 2 are certainty and variety. And although I very much value variety and doing something new and keeping my mind occupied, because I've worked in call centers selling insurance, running through the same script over and over again, and I can't stand monotony anymore. I won't allow it of myself. However, having that, I totally agree with what you're saying, because having that need for variety then pushes down the need for certainty. But when you don't have certainty, there's chaos. Or it can end up being chaos if you don't keep it in check. And yeah.
Wow.
That's about me. We're not interviewing me.
Yeah. Can you tell a coach? And I'm like, tell me more about your story. I agree with the monotony thing. I used to work in the dental field. I worked as a dental hygienist, and I could not stand doing the exact same thing, sitting in that chair in that operatory all day, every day. So I completely understand that. I've always felt like I had that, like, creative bug in me where I needed something that was a little more creative. Yeah.
Well, that's the weird thing about editing. Like, having had the severe ADHD as a toddler, I have like the hyperfocus still, and a lot of other tendencies of ADHD, but I'm not mental like I was back then. But with editing, I can get hyper-focused on it, but because every video is a different video, it becomes less monotonous because it's always something slightly different. But you would have thought that might be the case with talking to people about insurance, but I think it was the fact that I didn't care about the product being sold.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's way more about me than I've discussed in this so far. Anyway, how did you get into all of this? So you're in the... Did you see anything about my sister when...
I didn't. No.
Well, she's a dental nurse, so...
That's so funny.
But how did you go from that? And then also, what age did you make the transition from doing that to your current path?
Right. So I kind of like fast tracked a lot of things. I started working, I like graduated and started working when I was either 19 or 20. And then I worked full time for 2 years. So I think I was 22 when I decided to quit the dental hygiene. And then I always knew I wanted to be my own boss and also do something more creative. So I kind of did this. I tried this online shop for a while, for a few months maybe, where I was selling like incense and yoga mats, and I thought that would maybe give me what I wanted. But then I was like, now I miss the human interaction part of things, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of fell into this by accident. The coaching stuff, I never went out looking to be a coach. I didn't even really know what that was. I had heard of life coaches, but I thought it was a very rare, like I didn't even know that was really a possibility. But I was dating someone at the time when I was in the dental field, and I was having panic attacks, struggled with anxiety for most of my life, social anxiety, all sorts of stuff. And so my panic attack started, and I, was telling him about it, and he knew a woman who was a family doctor turned intuitive coach. And she had helped a lot of his family with all sorts of things. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And he sent me the link, and he said, it's a little different, but just, if you feel drawn to her, maybe that could be helpful. So a week or two go by, and I felt quite drawn to booking a session with her. And within the first 10 minutes, I was like, how does she know who I am? And how does she know where my anxiety is coming from? And how does she know stuff that no one has been able to explain to me before? How is she picking up on everything that I am? It's so wild. And so I continued getting coaching sessions with her. I quit my dental job after one session with her. A little impulsive, but I think it was a great decision. I did carry around my resignation letter for a little too long. I was really scared to quit, but I did. And then a few months later is when I started that online business trying to sell some spiritual goodies. And then I found out that she actually trained people to become intuitive coaches with another coach. And I just felt, I can't even explain it. I just felt so drawn to this thing. And at the time it was called Mind, Body, Spirit Practitioner. And I was drawn to taking this course so I could learn how she did what she did with me, so that I could heal myself. And of course, maybe it was 6 months into it where I thought, oh, wow, if I do practice calls and I can get certified, maybe this could help someone. I put off my practice calls for a long time because I thought this isn't something I'm going to end up doing. But then I did the practice calls and realized how helpful it was for people, and also that I had the ability to impact people that I didn't know I had. So yeah, long story, but I kind of stumbled into it, and then I haven't looked back. Yeah.
Incredible. And what would you say to people who are skeptical? Because like you said, when you were being referred, the girl was like, it's a bit out there, it's a bit different, some people might say airy-fairy, but you had the willingness to try it. Now, being an intuitive coach, how would you get people to have that willingness?
Well, I don't really think that's my job. I don't. I
What's
feel
the
like
better question there then?
So I think that the people that are willing are usually Like, I don't really have to force anyone to be willing to do the work. I think usually when people are ready, that's a part of their journey as well, is picking up the phone. I mean, people don't call me anymore, but, emailing or DMing, I feel like that's really a part of someone's journey and you can't force that. I think I've had people come in and be really skeptical. And then usually when, we get into even like a discovery call, they're like, how did you know that about me? Or how were you able to solve that? And so I feel like the proof is just kind of in the pudding. So I don't really feel, I don't really sell. I don't really sell like the coaching when I'm on social media. I'm just like, if people feel drawn to it, then they are my ideal person to work with, and vice versa. So that's kind of how I how yeah. But I know a lot of people are skeptical, and that's okay. Like, I was skeptical too. Yeah.
So maybe the better question is, what have people generally already tried by the time they come to you? Have they gone through all of the medical kind of things that they think they need to do, and then they're like, actually, that isn't working? Or where are they generally on their journey when they get to you?
I mean, that's a great question. So yeah, I mean, usually people have tried therapy and counseling, and most of my clients haven't. They're kind of the people who are like, I want to try healing myself without medication first, kind of a thing when it comes to anxiety and depression and things like that. Those are usually the type of people I attract, and I think it's because I'm kind of like that too. I don't even really take painkillers if I'm in pain. I'm that person. So I tend to attract people who've kind of tried a lot of things and have realized that just talking about it won't help. So getting to the root of the issue through the intuitive side of things is super helpful for them. But yeah, I always say, if you feel drawn to therapy or counseling, I say try it. Like, I always have 3 people ready to, book with. I have my coach, I have my therapist, and I have my energy healer person. So I always say try it all and see what lands. But yeah, most people have tried a few different things.
And if they're already of the mind that they want to heal themselves without medication or whatever, they're kind of already predisposed to be a fit for your service, right? Then you just have to kind of attract them with your energy and content to show that you're right intuitive coach.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of people, when they stumble onto my content, I don't think they have ever even heard of what an intuitive coach is, but based on the things I talk about, my experiences that I share, it just intrigues them, and yeah.
Ideal. So what are the plans for the future? What are you working on now? And where's your content creation and stuff going?
That's a good question. So right now, I've actually been working to get more out there in person again. So doing workshops in person. I've only been working virtually for the past few years, so I've really missed that in-person connection. So that's one of the things I've been doing. And I started my workshops up a couple weeks ago, and it's been really nice. I do want to get back into the swing of things with content creation, because I think we all kind of go through the ebbs and the flows. But I think it's really important for me moving forward to find a balance with it, because again, making one video a day on TikTok for 90 days and then getting burnt out isn't ideal. So I think for me, I want to continue with the content creation and just do it in a more balanced way so that I don't burn out.
Maybe
so
a
those are
more
a couple of things.
systemized way.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Or even outsource, find someone who can help me with that stuff so that I'm not doing it all the time. So
I know a guy.
do you? Please give me his card. Give me his at. Yeah.
We could talk about that when we finish recording, if you like.
Yeah, for sure.
That sounds cool. What are the workshops like? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So the most recent one was on overcoming anxiety and stress. And that's kind of the topic that I've been leaning towards the past 6 months or so. And we really dive into the patterns that keep us stuck in anxiety and stress, because I believe that everything is just a pattern. And so if we can break that pattern, then we don't have to be living in these chronic states of anxiety and stress. So we talk about the different patterns that keep us stuck, as well as ways that we can actually start creating a baseline of peace. And yeah, I take everyone through different guided exercises and just have everyone feel into what peace actually feels like. Because I think so many of us have actually forgotten what inner peace feels like. Yeah.
Very nice. Can you summarize in a few sentences the patterns that keep people in the states of anxiety, stress, and depression?
Mm-hmm. So in a few sentences, God, this is normally a 2-hour workshop, but I'll try my best. So one of the things that keeps us stuck is running away from ourselves. And this is the biggest one, where we're constantly distracting ourselves from our inner world. So this is where I'm not feeling so well, but I'm just going to do a little Netflix binge, or I'm just going to kind of, get drunk, go on a bender, right? There's all sorts of things that we do to distract ourselves from our inner world. And when we keep on distracting ourselves, what happens is there's this, everything is emotion and energy, and you've probably heard emotion is just energy in motion. And so there's all of these little emotions in our body, right? Maybe there's some sadness, maybe there's some grief, maybe there's some fear. And if we run away from it, it only gets bigger, it only amplifies. And so that's where that stress and that anxiety, that chronic anxiety, can really be a detriment because we're ignoring it. So that's kind of one of the sort of huge patterns that a lot of us have. And that's kind of just how we grew up. So a lot of us just kind of take that on. Another one is, honestly, I always say this is maybe the biggest one, is thinking that we're all alone and thinking that we're on our own. And this one breaks my heart because so many people don't reach out for help. So many people don't say the 3 magical words, I need help. And so many people think that they're all alone, not just in the anxiety and the stress, but all alone in life. I feel like there's a lot of separation nowadays, a lot of, we've all heard about the loneliness epidemic. And then taking it one step further, I'm really big in spiritual foundations. We're not all alone physically. Like, we have our ancestors, we have, guides, we have guidance all around us. I believe in the power of nature and how you can ask a question and go out into nature, and nature will give you the answer. And so there are all of these ways in which we are being supported and held and guided. And when we think we're all alone, that can keep us really, really stuck. And I think that might be one of the biggest things with anxiety nowadays. When you get into a group at these workshops and everyone's talking about their experiences, we're all like, what? You have that too? You have that too? You have that too? And so it's so liberating to know that we're not alone physically and non-physically. So yeah, I mean, those are a couple of the things I think I've really been feeling into this idea lately, if you don't mind me just like going off of the idea. I know I grew up very hyper independent. So thinking like, I'm a lone wolf. I can do this by myself and I can rely on myself. And there are pros and cons to it because I deeply trust in myself. But then the con around that is that, well, you don't really trust other people to do as good of a job as you can, or you don't know how to ask people for help. And this past year
now.
Sorry?
I said, speaking my language now, I've experienced all of those things you've just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
But actually also brings me to the question I wanted to ask is, how much do you see identity as being an issue with that stuff? Because I know a lot of people will go, I am depressed. I am anxious. That is me. And it's not. It's a state that you experience.
Yeah.
But they're so kind of smothered by that state that they can't see past it. And they see it in themselves. Is that what you found?
Totally. I mean, I think our words are so powerful and how we identify ourselves is powerful. I think, even saying I am depressed or I am anxious, sometimes it can be liberating because you're just being honest.
Depends on the lens from which you're saying it,
doesn't it? Depends on how you're saying it. Yeah.
If you say I am anxious, as in I am experiencing some anxiety.
Yeah.
You are just embodying the state that you are feeling in that moment. If you say,
Totally.
where it's kind of like if you say, I have anxiety, and it's like, I have it, it stays with me, even when I'm not necessarily feeling anxious. So I know it's coming back. And it's part of my identity.
Yeah, totally. I mean, labels and how we say things is everything, right? But I also feel like there are those deeper labels that we have. So for example, the hyper independence. I am an independent woman and I don't need anyone. Well, then how are you ever going to get help? And what's going to happen if, you are crumbling? You're just going to isolate yourself and try to get through it on your own. I think there are these deeper labels that we have that can keep us stuck in those states.
Because if you identify as having anxiety, but then deeper as an independent woman who deals with everything on their own, the anxiety never gets dealt with.
Absolutely.
Unless you use that hyper independence to educate yourself around the fact that you're experiencing a state that you don't need to identify as it being yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it could definitely, I know, what a trip. It's like mindception, but it's cool. I think that's where I always love going to like my therapist or my coach, because they can see those like blind spots that I can't see. Right. But yeah, those deeper layers are everything. And if we don't allow ourselves to be held and to be seen, then the shift is very difficult to do on our own.
So with things like anxiety and depression, what are your views on, is there a cure for those things?
That's a great question. Well, I think that we're all going to experience anxiety and depression or just lower states in our lifetime, but I don't think we have to stay there. And so I actually, this is where I start to sound like I'm like everything's a paradox, but I actually think if we get to a really bad state of anxiety, it can be a huge wake-up call. It can actually help us change our lives. And I think the same thing with depression. Maybe it's showing us that, kind of like what Jim Carrey said, maybe we've been playing a character for too long that isn't us, and now we feel depressed. So I think these states we often look at them very negatively, but I think that they are also just like messengers. They're showing us where we need to see something differently, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And not get stuck there, like you said. I have a friend whose band have a song. What a long way of saying that. My friend's band have a song called Rock Bottom is a Stepping Stone. It's a great song, but that title in itself I really like, because it is a reminder, like in Fight Club, that was all about hitting rock bottom and then moving forward, even though it ended a bit weird. If you hit rock bottom, the only way is up.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we kind of have to hit rock bottom, because that's also when your identity crumbles. That's when you can't be hyper independent anymore.
Yeah. Well, like with not drinking, I am now on the 12th of October, a year, 9 months and 12 days sober.
Yay!
That was like the thing that made me quit, was the fact that I was putting away 12 cans of IPA every night. Like, you're not going to go completely sober when like you have a glass of champagne once a month, a family dinner, you know what I mean? Like, you have to kind of hit that moment of low where it's like, this is too much, things need to change.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why would you make a change?
Totally. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I have high functioning anxiety, but I'm functioning highly, right? For me, it wasn't until I started having panic attacks where I was like, oh, wow, this really sucks and I can't handle this anymore. Now I'm getting help. So yeah, it seems to be the story for a lot of us. And then in so many, like you said, Fight Club and all of the movies we see, I mean, most characters hit a rock bottom.
I heard it was actually Russell Brand that said this, and I love Russell Brand, and despite the allegations that are going around, he's had a very positive effect on my life. But he said in the interview that's now been taken down with Stephen Bartlett that change comes from a non-avoidable dilemma. And I think that's a very succinct, nice way of saying exactly what we've just said.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can tell that you might have some other thoughts about Russell Brand due to those allegations, maybe. Yeah, let's not go down that.
Let's not make this a Russell Brand podcast. This is the Rad podcast. So let's stick with that.
Exactly. Well, having said that, I think it's about time that we wrap up. Ram, this has been an absolute pleasure. Can you tell people watching and listening where they can find you and what to do in order to possibly work with you?
Yeah, for sure.
If you're taking people on.
Yes, I do take on a couple clients every month or two. So I am accessible on Instagram, Ramanhari3. And I think that's the best place to find me, honestly. Right now, as I was kind of talking about, I'm really focused on working with clients who are experiencing anxiety, burnout, overwhelm, those kinds of things. It's been really close to my heart this past 6 months or so. So right now, my main program is called Beyond Anxiety. I believe that who we are at the core is not our anxiety, and it's not our inner blocks and everything like that. And yeah, it's a 12-week program that I'm really, really passionate about. It's where we really dive deep, continue to do this work one-on-one, and create a baseline of peace. And then we also work with a lot of like higher wisdom and intuitive guidance. And yeah, I guide you the whole way through, and you have my support for 3 months. And that's what I'm kind of most excited about right now. It's my absolute joy and pleasure to do one-on-one work. It makes me so happy. And if I could just only do one-on-one work and like be in a forest for the rest of my life, I'd be pretty happy with that. But yeah, that's kind of where you can find me and what I've been up to. And yeah, I've really enjoyed being on this podcast and chatting with you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Conan. All those links will be below the video and in the show notes. And for you watching and listening at home, keep being rad.